This is Entrepreneurs Get Visible, the podcast for people who want more impact, influence, and income. I'm Anna Parker-Naples, and I'll be sharing with you proven methods from leading entrepreneurs that help you get visible as an authority in your field. Because anything's possible when you get visible.
Hey there. I want to talk today about what to do when you launch something, a course, a membership, a podcast, a book, whatever it is, and it totally bums out and does not get you the results that you want. And the reason I want to talk to you about this right now is that only a week ago today, I launched my book and I had phenomenal success with it. But that's not the case for every single launch I've ever done. And I think it's important that I talk about the launches that have gone less well to show you that you don't get the great launches without failing, testing, revising, learning, implementing and changing. Because it's very easy in this online space to think that other people who are having those big results, being it number one podcast, number one book, being the massive 100K launches or beyond, to think that it just comes easy to some people and that that's out of your control, that either you've got it or you haven't, because that isn't the case. So what does it look like when a launch doesn't go well? Why does that happen? And what can you do about it? So first of all, what's been the cause of it not going well? What have been the numbers that aren't working for you? So is it that you haven't had enough people sign up to a challenge? Is it that you haven't had enough people sign up for your masterclass? And then it goes beyond that. Did you not have enough people participate? Maybe people joined your list but didn't actually come through to take part. And part of that is normal. There are stats around this. It's about 30% of people that sign up to something will actually turn up on the day if you've done a great job of keeping them warm. Is it then that you haven't had a good enough follow-up sequence? Is it that you've basically not communicated with people? Is it that your social media hasn't been on point? Is it that you haven't been visible? Every time that a launch doesn't go well, it can be painful, shameful, frustrating, make you feel angry, fill you up with all sorts of levels of imposter syndrome, that I must be a failure, that I'm not good enough, that people don't think enough of me, that they would invest. But I want you, as a result of listening to this today, to go in and think to yourself, actually, what's the truth here? What are my learnings for me as an individual? And what are my learnings for my business? So those learnings for you as an individual might well be, actually, if I'm honest, I took my foot off the pedal. Actually, if I'm honest, I sat and watched Netflix the week of my launch when I knew I should have been doing more social media. Actually, if I'm honest, I didn't spend the time writing a really powerful closed down email sequence that I could have done. Instead, I rushed them and I copied them from something else that I'd seen, and it didn't feel like me. It might also be that if you're honest, there was a part of you that was scared of having that big launch and getting a lot of people through the door to do your program or your membership. And maybe that fear actually stems from something going on in your family life. Maybe that's more what's going on. That if you'd had that big, massive result that you so want because you see everybody else doing it, but actually in your life right now, you have family obligations or health obligations or concerns that need your priority, that need your attention. Maybe when this launch doesn't go well for you, you need to reflect on, am I actually selling something people actually want? Am I actually selling something to people I actually want to be speaking to? And this is a common mistake for coaches. Either they devalue themselves or they're speaking to the wrong people. And sometimes you know this. And the other thing I see people doing is that in devaluing their work, the people who would really pay premium top dollar for what they're promoting aren't going to come into something that's low cost. They're just not going to do that. There's a disconnect. So stop and think, where are you heading in this world? Is the latest launch that you've done really the only way that you can do that? I want you to be really aware of what levels of frustration it brings up for you, what levels of anger it brings up for you. I want you to be aware of, have I actually been following steps that a mentor or a coach has been giving me? Or have I missed out some vital components for working things and influencing people in this online space? So I know that, for example, a couple of months ago, it was more than that, it was much earlier this year, I knew that in order to launch a particular thing, I needed the launch to be quite closely on the back of a launch of something else. And I knew in my heart I didn't have enough time to talk the talk and seed that idea with my audience over and over and over again for a period of between 6 and 12 weeks, because my diary was rammed and I wanted that launch out there. And I understood that whilst I got positive results and I did win clients, that had I taken my time to seed, to plant, to grow, rather than wanting to reap that harvest before everything has taken hold in the ground, that I hadn't done everything I could in my heart, or even not even in my heart, but in the actual strategy of making things happen. I hadn't done enough to get the result that I wanted. So are you rushing processes because you have a fear about not having the income? The other thing I want to say to you is, if you do a challenge or a masterclass where only a handful of people, maybe 20 people for a challenge or less, or you do a masterclass and hardly anyone shows up, I want you to know you are not the only one to have done that. And I want you to know that those handful of people that turned up are really hot leads. So those feelings of shame you might have because only 2 people turned up and they're all going to know you haven't got an audience of thousands, well, they showed up for you. They're really interested. So you have a choice at this point as to whether you see them as valuable or whether you're stuck in that pity story. So I'm going to take a couple of clients of mine from a couple of years ago. Both did similar launches around the same time. Similar but different fields, both coaches. One was extremely excited that she got 4 people into her course. The other was really devastated. One totally and utterly showed up for those 4 people and went the extra mile for them. The other felt really embarrassed through the whole procedure. And in her heart, when we reflected on this afterwards, she didn't show up in the way that she should. Now, long term, who builds a more successful business? The one who honours those people, or the one who feels deflated the whole way through? Now, only 3 years ago in my business, I did a launch for a coaching package. It was an 8-week course that actually went on to become the foundation of one of my books. And when I launched it, I actually had 2 people purchase. And again, I felt awkward about that and I felt embarrassed and I thought they're going to think I'm rubbish. But you know what? I learned so much from that, and I got great testimonials, great feedback, great results for them. And I had more people in my world who knew that I could really help them. So you have a choice about how you show up. And what I want to say to you is, if you've had a launch recently where it's been really shit, don't pretend it's all okay. Let yourself feel down about that. Let yourself have a whinge. But only whinge with the people who you know are going to pull you back up. Because if you go and whinge to the people in your world who don't get what you're doing, who lack faith in your dreams, they're going to bring you down. So I absolutely want you to make sure that you're protecting yourself, but that you let yourself go into that well, but with a finite amount of time. Let yourself sit in it. Let yourself take the lessons. There was a phrase actually that someone said to me that I found incredibly useful. If this failed launch, and it's never a failed launch because it's always a learning. If this failed launch, instead of it being against me and something I have to fight and rail against, if this is for me, if this is the best thing for me right now, what is there for me? What can I take from this? What can I learn from this? And often there will be a learning for you around the fact that it's the wrong offer, that you're not doing the work in the way that you pretend you're doing the work, that you can be honest with yourself, that you actually aren't speaking to the people you want to speak to, or that you've got the price point wrong. And sometimes that is not that you need to go lower. Sometimes actually it's that you need to play the high game, because sometimes there can be a disconnect. We think that in order to get more people in, we have to go low. And actually by going low, you could be cutting out your target market. Are the fees the right thing for me? And actually, am I running the business? Is this the course? Is this the package? Is this the thing I want to be known for? And sometimes we're in a hurry. We're in a hurry to get results. But what happens if you tap in? And that's what I'm going to leave you with today. I don't think any failed launch or a launch that doesn't get you the results that you want is a bad thing. It does not mean you're not good enough. It does not mean that you don't know what you're doing. And I want you to understand that I now network and am friends with many of the world's leading entrepreneurs in this online business space. Every single one of them has had launches that have bummed, and not just in the early stages. Not just in the early stages. People just don't talk about it at the time because they haven't taken the learnings, and it doesn't serve them to talk about it at the time. So I'm going to urge you to go within, work out how this is for you, and then work out the next best steps you can take to pull yourself up and reach for the stars. I hope this has been really useful for you today. And I hope that you listen to the fact that you're not alone. You are not the only one who's had a launch that hasn't worked. And it doesn't mean you will never have successful launches again. It doesn't mean people can't see your value. It just means it wasn't today. It wasn't right now. So what are you going to do to make sure it happens in the future?
Thank you for listening to Entrepreneurs Get Visible. To get your free checklist on how to raise your profile and to find out about our community, go to annaparkernaples.co.uk/get visible.